Hello friends! Firstly, I am sick, which is why my voice might sound weird. I apologize. There are no sick days on YouTube, especially when this cough just won't go away. So a lot of you sent me this video and were telling me that it was horrible and absolutely the worst and just awful and that I have to react to it and set everything straight. And it's really honestly not that bad. This video is a coverage of Venus Angelic's career on YouTube with her mom and basically the controversies and things that she went through with her mom during that time. Just to kind of put everything together and the history and how she got out of it. And I think that all of that information is correct. I have been following Venus for a long time, probably off and on since 2012, 2013. I think that all of that information is correct. However, the way that Primink describes the content that Venus Angelic actually made during that time and now is really incorrect and wrong. And that's the part I think that made people heated, and that's what I'm here today to explain. So this is a little bit different than most of my reacts. I'm not just watching this blindly for the first time. It's a really long video, so I didn't want to just sit here going through it when most of it is not even really relevant to my channel, because I'm not here to document Venus's life. I'm here to talk about what Lolita fashion is and different alternative fashion substyles. I watched this ahead of time and I have kind of gathered some thoughts on things that I think were incorrect in this video and that need to be talked about. Also, he used an image of me, and so now I have free reign to go into this.
So, in the last few years, you may have noticed there's been a rising trend that involves dressing in very different, unique clothing. You've probably seen some of these strangely dressed characters at one point. They seem to be popping up everywhere.
So, first of all, this idea of people dressing up and dressing differently is not a new thing. And a lot of the people that he showed as examples, they have their style is coming from a Harajuku inspired fashion of some style, and different Harajuku fashions can be dated back to the 1950s. It's really not a new thing, and I feel like the media has always kind of had an interest in these people. The way that he used the word characters kind of dehumanizes the people themselves, and especially with a lot of people outside of different fashions, using the word characters makes it feel like they're not being their genuine true self, which is just a little bit insulting.
Of one girl who was being forced by her controlling mother to ride this trend for fame and money.
I feel like that is a little bit incorrect as well, because yes, her mom definitely pushed her to continue doing this, but the way that he said it almost made it seem like Venus herself didn't have a genuine interest in alternative fashion, which I think that she absolutely did, and her mom saw that that there were other people that were gaining popularity and just like trying to manipulate her into doing that as well. Then we have this montage of Venus Angelic's content, which was really well edited and was really good.
I use my VPN to get Canadian Netflix. If you guys didn't know, Netflix has like different shows for each country, and for some reason, Canada is the best. I just watched the entire Harry Potter series. Need I say more?
The entire Harry Potter series isn't even on Canadian Netflix. Only the 5th through the end, not the first 4. So, Canadian Netflix has a lot less on it than American Netflix. I am a former American living in Canada, and every time I go to the States, I always open up my Netflix and I'm amazed at how many different things there are that aren't here. Wait, I don't even know if Primink is in the States. I'm not sure where he's located, but go into the American one. They have all the Goosebumps episodes. All of them. Canada only has like one season. It's not even really a season. It's just a bunch of random anyways, I'm on a tangent. ExpressVPN, would you like to sponsor me? I need sponsors.
Venus's whole online personality is that she's a living doll. She looks like a doll, she talks in a very doll-like voice. That's her whole shtick. On her channel, she would make makeup tutorials on how to look like a doll, or she would review products that make you look like a doll. She was just being a doll. That's all it was. It's a bit strange. This whole look comes from, or at least is heavily inspired by, a Japanese fashion trend called Lolita, I believe. It's just a Japanese look of dressing extremely cute and doll-like. Venus ended up gaining a lot of fame for this weird style.
No, okay. All right, here we go. That's not how you describe Lolita fashion. Lolita fashion is not a doll fashion. Lolita fashion isn't about looking like a doll. That's someone who's incredibly ill-informed and doesn't know anything about the fashion. It would have been nice on this video that has 3 million views if you'd put a little lovely lore in the corner. Take like 2 seconds, you know, just put my name when you're using my face and you're explaining the content that I create wrong. Lolita fashion is inspired by French Rococo fashion and Victorian English fashion. It's kind of a mesh of the two. You can kind of see Rococo in Sweet Lolita and Victorian in more classic. It's a Japanese alternative street style that has nothing to do with looking like a doll. The fact that people compare us to looking like a doll is because of misinformation, and also because there are a lot of dolls that wear Rococo and Victorian fashion. And a lot of people associate those fashions with dolls, when those fashions actually existed on humans. If you need more of an explanation on what Lolita fashion is, my entire channel is basically all Lolita fashion with some other substyles mixed in and some personal stuff, but I have so many videos explaining what Lolita fashion is. I would not say that Venus Angelic's style is largely influenced or inspired by Lolita fashion. Yes, she did wear Lolita fashion sometimes, but she never really reflected Lolita. She would use the fashion as being a doll. And I do think that you can take Lolita fashion pieces and use them in ways that is not Lolita. For example, Hayley Williams wearing a bodyline dress in her music video, but she's not styled like a Lolita. She's not doing things for the Lolita community or for a Lolita audience. She's just using that piece because she thinks it's cute. Alaska, in her video, she's wearing a Lolita fashion piece in a non-Lolita fashion way, and I think that's fine. And I do think that this is a nuance that people that are outside of the community might not understand, and that's why I wanted to explain it. And I definitely think there is a difference between being a Lolita and being someone who wears Lolita pieces. And I think that a big way to differentiate that is between whether you're claiming to be a Lolita or not. And Venus didn't really ever claim to be a Lolita. She always claimed to be a living doll. And we know now that a lot of that is to do with her mother, who was trying to ride the trends of other living dolls at that time. Lolita fashion is also heavily around a community of people who get together and wear the fashion in certain particular ways, in full coordinates. Venus Angelic at that time, and still today, isn't really considered part of the Lolita community. If you look at her, just her thumbnails, you can see that she doesn't use a lot of Lolita names, she doesn't use a lot of Lolita tags, she doesn't talk about Lolita in general.
Because she was one of the few English-speaking people doing this look at the time. She really blew up in 2012.
Back at this time when he says not many other English people were doing this kind of content, she really was not liked in the Lolita community because people didn't realize, you know, the background of her and her mom at that time. They thought she was just doing this all on her own. And she herself was kind of misrepresenting the fashion by calling herself a living doll. And she really did not reflect the Lolita community at this time, and she was not liked by the Lolita community at this time. I think that now a lot of us do feel sympathy for what she went through, like myself included, and so now we kind of look back and say, oh, I appreciate Venus, and I like her content, even though it isn't really Lolita content. If I were to explain what Venus Angelic did at that time, and also still kind of does, is she's part of the community of foreigners who are interested in Japanese culture, Japanese fashion, Japanese subculture, Japanese things. And Venus's ultimate goal was to live in Japan, and she made that very clear throughout all of her time on YouTube. If I were to categorize her alongside people, I would put her in the group of YouTubers who cover Japan and Japanese things rather than with the Lolitas. I want to also express that at this time, there were other YouTubers who were actually making Lolita content. I mean, I started, I think, in 2011 or 2012, and before me, there was Princess Peachy and there was Shelby Cloud. So she wasn't the only person making Lolita content. In fact, she wasn't even making Lolita content. Venus Angelic did model for Bodyline, and I explained all of that in a video on Bodyline, so go check that out. Venus's style is not only Lolita, but you can see a lot of influence from other Japanese substyles like Gyaru and Fairy K. I definitely think that a comparison for explaining Venus's content and the way that her mom treated her is more comparable to like Japanese idol culture than Lolita fashion, because her end goal was definitely to be like famous and in Japan, which congrats, like she did it.
Venus at one point even got her own doll themed segment of My Strange Addictions, which resulted in a pretty great meme.
I also have a video about the My Strange Addiction Living Doll episode. I explain in that video, but I want to explain again that when they were filming this, they did not know that it was for My Strange Addiction. So I think that's important to talk about. I think that part of the reason why she gained such popularity wasn't necessarily because there's a big community of people that are interested in living dolls. It's more because it was cringy, and so it spread a lot because it was cringy and people like to see cringy things for some reason. Alright, so then we go through this whole bit of Venus and other YouTubers who were making a similar content to Venus and them fighting, and it actually is just her mom fighting for her, and none of them are wearing Lolita, and none of this has to do with Lolita fashion. So let's just skip ahead. I understand why Primink made this video of Venus, because he wanted to collectively put all of the information about Venus and her mom into a video. However, I'm just more interested in someone covering what Venus has done since, because I follow her, but I find it kind of confusing to follow. Like at one point she was going to be an animated idol similar to like and then also she's running some sort of like agency and is gonna be making kind of like a network with other YouTubers, and that's what I'm really interested in. I think that there's been enough coverage of her and her mom, but I'm at least thankful that there's a concise documentation of it all together, because it can help anyone who saw Venus in that time kind of understand now that it wasn't fully her. And I think that this can help repair her reputation as a creator and show that she's off on her own now. It worries me when people cover Venus because she also has a lot of struggles with mental health, and I'm always afraid of how these kind of things are going to affect her, and I think that people really need to remember that. Also, I don't know if he mentioned it and I just missed it, but at one point Venus's mom fully just deleted her channel, which is really I also want to point out that this must be incredibly difficult for Venus, because her mom was her sole caretaker. Her mom homeschooled her. Her mom controlled every aspect of her life. And to have someone that close and that important to you betray you in such a way, I can't even imagine it. I was also really disappointed that Primink in his thumbnail used an image from when Venus was suffering after a botched surgery and she was very ill, which doesn't really have anything to do with her mom or this subject at all, but it does look very shocking, and I think that that's quite harmful. I wouldn't have done that. I maybe would have used like an image of her mom behind her rather than that. Alright, so we've corrected what was wrong about Lolita fashion, and hopefully you have a better understanding of Venus Angelic and her content. I am very interested in what Venus is going to do in the future, and I fully support her. And I actually watched a bunch of other Primink videos, and I've really enjoyed them too. In my next React video, I'm going to be watching a video that I have not seen and reacting to it immediately, blindly, so tune in for that. As always, stay lovely.